Welcome back, wordsmiths and story seekers. I am your host, Daniel Willcocks, broadcasting from the shadowy halls of Devil's Rock HQ. And tonight I'm thrilled to share the writer's share with the authorial powerhouse that is Michael David Wilson. Michael David Wilson is the founder of the popular UK horror website, podcast and publisher This Is Horror. He is the author of The Girl in the Video, They're Watching with Bob Pastorella, House of Bad Memories and Daddy's Boy. His work has appeared in various publications including the No Sleep podcast, Dim Shores, Dark Moon Digest, and Hawk and Cleaver's The Other Stories. Michael lives in Gifu, Japan. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. It's great to be back.
Yes. So across a bunch of different shows and different ways, we've had quite a few conversations. So I feel like this one isn't necessarily going to be so much about your intros to horror and all that kind of stuff, because we've covered that and I can put some links to that in the show notes. But I do want to say the last time we spoke was volume 99 of The Other Stories. We did the interview in what is now become the Writer's Share podcast on the 30th of September last year. So 2024, for anyone listening to this in 2056. What's been happening to Michael David Wilson since then? What has anything significant or anything you want to share happened in the last sort of 7-8 months?
Well, I mean, a few days after the 30th of September, as I was saying to you off air, I had my wedding, so that's fairly significant, I would say. It was in
mildly significant,
Kobe, Japan. The wedding photos are spectacular because we had Kobe Tower in the background. So, yeah, very nice occasion indeed. But
yeah,
perhaps rather than you asking about my personal life, you want to know about kind of what's been going on professionally. And of course, as you alluded to in the intro, I've got a new book. It came out last month. It's called Daddy's Boy. We spoke about House of Bad Memories before. That is a dark thriller with comedic elements, but I think it's fair to say that Daddy's Boy is the inverse of that, in that it is a dark comedy with thriller and crime and horror elements. So I've certainly gone as comedic as I've ever gone in a book before. And I think this is probably, the limit of comedy that people will be seeing in a story from me. But it was hugely enjoyable to write. And I mean, I laughed at my own kind of jokes during it, which may sound slightly pretentious or might sound like a kind of Garth Marenghi thing to say. It's like, wow, it's so funny that I made myself laugh more than anyone has ever made me laugh. But that's not necessarily true, but it was hugely enjoyable, and it was cathartic because even though, it came out a month ago, I finished writing at least the initial draft, I guess, over a year or so ago. And it was while I was going through this terrible time in my life with the divorce of the first marriage, obviously, and then the custody battle as well. So I was in a dark, dark place, but then being able to write something that was so hugely enjoyable was so freeing. But at the same time, as you probably picked up on, particularly because you know me very well, there were a number of things that were from my personal life, but they were couched in metaphor. They were couched in metaphor even, that meant that I could kind of talk about them. And of course, Chuck Palahniuk talks about in fiction, we can talk about the things that we can't say. So actually, you can get nearer truth through fiction than you ever could through nonfiction. And that's kind of what I did. So that's what I've been doing these last 6 months, getting ready for the launch of Daddy's Boy.
Yeah. So here's the question that you don't need to answer. Which do you feel like had the biggest impact on your life? The wedding or the new release of the book? You don't have to do that. We can skate straight past that. So to set the scene for Daddy's Boy, because obviously this conversation, I think we're going to go fairly deep into the book. I will read the review that I dropped, and then last time we spoke with House of Bad Memories, you did like a cool little reading of like the blurb and stuff. I don't know if you'd be happy to do that again, just to kind of like pitch people into the madness that is this book in like the best way. But I left a review on this book that literally says, I don't, what? This book is chaos in the best goddamn way. I've read every Michael David Wilson I can get my hands on, and this did not disappoint. Laced with Michael's signature witty charm, intelligent prose, and a fresh dollop of what the fuck, Daddy's Boy is a whirlwind, action-packed adventure filled with wonder, gore, balls-to-the-wall insanity, and yes, some naked attraction thrown in too. Outside of the maelstrom, this book touches on one of the most fundamental strings of the human experience. A father and son and their touching ride till you die, literally, bond. It's hard to tread that thin line between high-octane entertainment and emotional sentiment, but Michael finds it and delivers it in spades. And I mean every word.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable and a brilliant review. You know, anytime something like that comes in, and then particularly from someone so discerning and well read as yourself. So,
oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
But you wrote the book, so let's hear your little introduction into what Daddy's Boy is for the listeners.
All right. Well, you requested it, so let's give you the back cover blurb in the same way that I did with House of Bad Memories.
I fully just spat water all over my laptop.
That's okay, because there's a lot of fluids that are spat everywhere throughout the course of Daddy's Boy. So I think that is apropos. It's a very liquid, it's a very fluidy book. So here we go.
I'm going to be wiping down my keyboard. Come on.
You do whatever you need to do. From the author of The Girl in the Video and House of Bad Memories comes a dark comedy of errors and toilet humor. Wentworth is at his wit's end. He has no money. His cat's been kidnapped, and every time he tries to kill himself, he fails. Worst of all, he lives in Kidderminster. But sometimes you are given a lifeline. For some, it's a lottery win. For others, a promotion. For Wentworth, it's an out-of-shape 50-something named Norman wearing an I Was On Naked Attraction t-shirt and scuffed Reeboks. Wentworth thinks he's in luck, but makes a series of progressively worse decisions and soon finds himself on the run from a gang of criminal reprobates. The two flee to Norman's holiday home, but there's a local serial killer on the loose. Something messed up is happening next door, and Norman is becoming uncomfortably clingy. Can Wentworth evade the criminal mob, shake off Norman's advances, and uncover his neighbor's secrets before he falls victim to the approaching serial killer? Daddy's Boy is shameless, meets Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman with the incompetence of The Hangover. Available now, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, narrated by Josh Curran.
Yes. Yeah, we might come into that a little bit later. I love that kind of like, I like it when books compare themselves and give you that flavour of what they are based on other properties. And I think you like have captured it there with Shameless, The Gentleman, and The Hangover. I'm going to go to the very sort of vanilla basic question just to kind of like kick off into this book. What was the impetus to writing Daddy's Boy? Where did the idea spring from?
Yeah, that is a good question, and there's a number of different ways that Daddy's Boy came to fruition. So, firstly, I said before that I was going through this really difficult time in my life. So, there are some elements in it that kind of directly come from that, or at least the kind of things that I was thinking about. So, I mean, this is about parenthood, but also being estranged from one's child. This is also about the limits that you will or perhaps won't go to be reconnected. It's also about the limits that you will tolerate with other people. So, in fact, thematically, you know, there's quite a lot that connects it with House of Bad Memories. That was also about parenthood. But in terms of where it came from initially, I mean, the initial idea was just kind of this image of a guy who's down on his luck. I mean, he has failed trying to kill himself. He to say he's down on his luck is an understatement. He is in financial ruin. He's lost a cat and it has lost all his money in a cat custody battle. You see what's going on here. You can
Yeah.
see we're couching real life in absurd metaphor, which then kind of makes it funny and okay to talk about. And then I thought, what if he's lining up for this loan at NatWest Bank, and then somebody, this waster in a Naked Attraction t-shirt, comes up to him and he's like, "Oh, hey boy, what would you do if I said I could offer you £1 million for an easy job?" And I thought, well, what would you do? And most people, you'd probably be like,
We're good.
can you go away with that bizarre faux kind of Cockney Guy Fawkes accent that you just came out with? But, you know, this guy, he has nothing to lose. And £1 million, it's a lot of money. It's more than the loan, which would have been for a few thousand that he was looking to get from NatWest. So he entertains this idea. He goes along with this guy who is called Norman, and he just keeps making progressively worse and worse decisions. And then the protagonist, Wentworth, just finds himself in this comedy of errors and this almost Brexit Britain, Joe R. Lansdale heist gone wrong by completely incompetent criminals. So that's kind of the genesis in terms of thematically and how it came to life. In terms of why I wrote Daddy's Boy, if we forget about it being cathartic, to be honest, at the same time I was writing 2 novels. The other one was far more advanced, and it was a psychosexual thriller that was very visceral and was very hate-filled. And so if we talk about Daddy's Boy being couched in metaphor, this one was less couched in metaphor, and it was just really angry. And so, like when I have any kind of life decision or life event, I spoke to my good friend and collaborator, John Crinnan. And I
Yes.
told him
Beardy
about the
McScotsman.
psychosexual thriller. And he asked me, what else am I working on? And I gave him a one-liner about Daddy's Boy, because it really was just an idea at that point. And he said, look, you know, I love all of your work, but goddamn, the one that I really want to see is Daddy's Boy. And I thought, well, I've got 50,000 words of the other one. I've only got about a page of Daddy's Boy, but John Crinnan wants to read that one. Oh, go on then, I'll give it a go. And then I just got hooked on it. Like it was, I mean, no book is really, really easy to write, but I would say, you know, that was one of the easier ones because of these characters just coming to life and coming at me with this absurd dialogue and this joyride of a book. I mean, both literally and metaphorically. This is a joyful joyride of absurdity and a strange cast of characters and incompetence. So that's kind of how Daddy's Boy came to life.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be, so following your track of your work, the girl in the video, onto there watching House of Bad Memories, there's definitely seems to be a bit of an arc in your stories of that emotional investment, that kind of expunging of experience that finds its way into the stories. But there still seems to be this through line, which I really appreciate, of, you know, this is a Michael David Wilson book, which I think, like, any writer wants that. It's the voice of Michael that carries through. how we spoke about catharsis in our last conversation back in September. How would you say that writing plays into the catharsis of working through these kind of, for want of a better word, like traumatic life events? Has it been a small factor in that, or has it been sort of a much larger factor in helping you kind of process some of those emotions, some of those feelings as you've been going through it?
It's an interesting one because there are some people who will use writing almost as a type of therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and they are more conscious that that is what they're doing. But often with me, I'm I'm writing, I'm enjoying it, it's helping me get better in a sense, but it's only when I reflect later that I can almost appreciate just how much and how well it served me. So I guess that when I look back at things, it's like, wow, that was me kind of projecting this feeling or this emotion that I might not have even been conscious that I was feeling. So I don't go to the page saying, okay, this is the thing I want to work through. It's almost I write and then retrospectively realize what it is that I'm working through, or what the message is that I can decipher from my own writing that can then kind of put me in a better place in my personal life. I've never been asked a question in a way that has made me express it quite like that before, and I've never really analyzed it to that extent. So I don't know if what I'm saying is going to be relatable to a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of writers have that experience, or if other people who find a cathartic experience from it do it in a more conscious way. But I I like as well how I'm not kind of afraid to put these bits of my personal life in, because it means that I can even reread a short story of mine. I should say, like, I don't make a habit. Like I made a comment earlier. I'm not like, oh, I need a good story today. Let's try one by me.
One of mine.
But to give some sense as to, so what am I talking about here? I'd like to put a collection of short stories together at some point, or sometimes I send out writing samples and profiles. That's why I'm rereading the short stories. But
Mm-hmm.
I can just see a line in there. It might be innocuous, and it will take me back to that place, and then it will make me realize how I was feeling, and it might even heal or make sense of some aspect in my life. Is this resonating? Is this something
Oh, 100,
that
like, so
you
jumping,
have too?
yeah, jumping in on my kind of like little personal journey at the minute. I have spoken somewhat publicly about a book that I wrote called The Nowhere Line, which hasn't yet found a home out with agents or publishers just yet. But I had some sort of professional editorial assessment of it come back recently, and I've been through this story over and over. And as I was writing it, I was very aware that there are that was an expunging of an experience I had. It was very much I'm aware there was some anger in there, some feelings that needed to be processed. But I didn't write the story like the story just kind of like felt like it needed to be said. And then in the editorial comments, one of the bits of feedback that I got was that it feels very one-sided and whiny. And that was something like quite a few people have read this book, and I've gotten like decent feedback in terms of like the pros and stuff. But obviously, this is why you go to like sort of a very blunt editor. And you know what, she's right. Like the only reason it comes across as whiny is because I only tell one side of that story. But in writing that story, that was the only side of the story I wanted to tell. And now I've got that kind of conscious decision in my head of like, okay, that was my, I guess, therapeutic output. And so now, do I leave the book as a mark of time in history as it is, or do I then open it up, start exploring the other side, and really change what that book was and what it did for me? I don't think it's something I ever really consciously do, but I absolutely, like you, will find those passages, those moments where I'm like, in hindsight, oh, that was that.
It's really interesting everything you've said, because another reason that I went for Daddy's Boy and not this other story that I was working on was I I could just feel that in that moment I was too kind of subjective. So it meant that like I was too in it with the anger. So I kind of felt that the protagonist, that there was something off with the balance, but I knew that I would only be able to address that when I was out of the moment. And, now when I look at it, I can put on more a kind of editorial or a more neutral position to know what to do. But it can be very difficult because, let's say, if we're talking about a very angry character, particularly if it's kind of to do with relationships and relationship dynamics, I think you kind of need to either, to speak broadly, soften that anger a little bit, or you need to kind of go full Patrick Bateman or
Mm,
full Joe Goldberg, and you need to make them an absolute psycho.
yeah.
And yeah, like my problem with that work in progress was he the protagonist went far enough that okay, there's something a bit unhinged, but he didn't quite go that extra mile. Well, the problem is then he just seems like a whiny dickhead, an
Hmm.
entitled dickhead. So I'm still figuring out that story. Like there's a skeleton, a structure of a good idea, and as you would probably expect, there's some very almost bizarro adjacent moments that have
Hmm.
jumped into it as well, which is inadvertently becoming a hallmark of my fiction. I don't know if it always will be, but it certainly is in Daddy's Boy. But I'm divided in terms of like, if one were to ask me, do I advise to write in the moment, or do I, when you're experiencing
Hmm.
trauma of some sort, or do you write when you're out of that moment? Probably the answer is yes, meaning that you do both. Um,
Yeah.
but perhaps the caveat is okay, write in the moment, but maybe edit when you're out of the moment or
Yes.
redraft when you're out. Because I've had the opposite problem as well before, where like maybe there's anger and there's passion and there's fire and you're in the moment, but then for whatever reason you abandon it. And then when
Mm.
you go back to it, it's like, I'm not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
So I might have figured out an answer to a question that I came up with that you didn't even ask, but this is what happens when we talk. So,
Two
you know, you
podcasters.
you write you write when you're feeling that
Yes.
anger and that emotion, and you second and third draft and you edit when you're out of it.
Yeah. But I think it also depends, kind of like the quandary that I've got at the minute, like, it depends what you want from the book itself, because if you want it to be, again, like a timestamp piece of your history of whatever, then it can exist as art for art's sake. But if you want to give it that more sort of commercial value, which again, like, I don't know which side of that coin I'm going to come down on, like, you then have to shape it and you have to change it from that kind of raw emotion, because a lot of people, there's something powerful about an author having lived through an experience and bringing that experience through a conduit that is the character within the book, because as you're reading those pages, as you're like flickering through the story, there is an authenticity. And obviously, like, I know more about you in your personal life than I'm gonna share on a podcast, but I can see you in that book and I can see those experiences and kind of some of those thought processes and stuff. And I think that's a really powerful thing. But you do, in order to give that to someone in a package that is somewhat presentable, you do still have to shape it into what is a story, into what people expect, into kind of, depending on how far you want to take it, the limits of what people will go to enjoy a story versus, like, there are certain things in my situation that I know damn well people will be bored by, but they have a big impact on me, and so I won't include those things. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it also touches on the kind of age-old dilemma that pretty much every writer listening will be going through, and it's authenticity versus commercialism. Like, what are we prepared to compromise to sell more books? That's a really blunt and crude way of putting it, but I think that's ultimately what it is. And I guess, one of the struggles, well, kind of a struggle, but something I'm up against at the moment is that I don't want to compromise too much, but I have to be honest. Well, if you're not doing that and you're putting out this quirky book set in the UK, when, by the way, the majority of my audience are from America, you've got obscure British references. There's a multitude of frozen and sometimes not frozen sausages, and every male character's dream, with the exception of perhaps one, is to be a contestant on Naked Attraction. It's the thing with that is, boy, it's not inherently commercial. So there's a shocker after saying all those things. But I think the magic with it, and when I came up with a story, it's like, look, it's not a commercial book, but it's the kind of thing where it could absolutely tank, or it could just get this cult following and it could be a massive success. I mean, it's kind of weird and obscure enough, and I think it's got something a little bit of like movies like Napoleon Dynamite and the Greasy Strangler, and maybe
Yeah.
even Freddy Got Fingered. Like, if the right people, the right weird little people pick it up and they
It's a
tell
real
their other,
Outcast vibe.
yeah,
Yeah.
weird friends, then it could do really well. It could be made into a movie, and it's that. This is kind of why we write as well, that possibility of what if. So that is, boy, it could become this massive thing, but it wouldn't. If I planned, like, let's write a commercial book, it would not be Daddy's Boy.
Yeah.
I think too, a lot of the reason that I do anything, like including the podcast, including different career choices that I make, I put things out into the world that I want to see exist that don't exist. If I was to write something and, somebody else could basically put it out, then I'm not interested, because they can put it out and it'll probably be great. And then I'll read that and then I can write the thing that isn't out. But goodness, trying to find publishers, trying to find agents, trying to find readers to some extent, it's like, who are they? But then when you find them and when you get these reviews, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
there you are.
That's my tribe.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this to people before, and it was a conversation that I had with Alan Baxter a month or so ago, and it's like, we're both convinced that there are so many people who will love our stuff, so many. The trick is we got to find them, and that is publishing. That is the book business. That's how it is. But God, every time I consider like writing something commercial, it just hurts, and it doesn't feel like I've tried, but it feels too phony. Like, I kind of wish I could. I think that the actor model that some people have, where it's like one for me, one for the studio,
Yeah.
that is such a sensible way of doing it. Um, I think, yeah, if I could, I would seriously consider that, and I don't think there's any shame to be had by admitting that. But time is incredibly finite, and for
Yeah.
me to write a book, like anything that I write, I take that so seriously. And
Hmm.
there are some people who they write these comedic things or bizarro adjacent, and they kind of, it's not so serious. But I am meticulous for every sentence, for every sausage reference, for every twerk of Des Lynam's moustache. That is a deliberate decision. And so, because each book probably takes 6 to 12 months, right now I can't justify doing one for them and one for me.
Hmm.
It's all for me. What a greedy bastard.
Yeah.
But that's, I've said before, if you can find joy in the pursuit of writing, then you win every time.
Yeah.
So I am winning every time. But it'd be nice if I financially won as well. So that's the writer's dilemma.
Yeah, I think any book that you write is always going to be a risk, because even the ones that you write to be commercial, there's no guarantee that it's ever going to find success. And it reminds me of that Jim Carrey quote conversation where he was talking about how he learned from his dad that his dad wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I don't know if you've heard this story. His dad wanted to be a stand-up comedian and decided to take the safe route of being an accountant to support his family, and then got made redundant from being an accountant. So he learned from an early age you can fail at the things you don't want as well as to fail at the things that you do want. And I think it was in a conversation I had with James Kennedy, wrote Bride of the Tornado, a very, very similar conversation about this, in terms of, you have to write the things that excite you. With a book being such a long process for a lot of people, you say 6 to 12 months for your books, and you have to, manage that around life and other things, and you have to be excited to get to the page. And if you're writing something that isn't in some way, your bag, something that does bring that fire, then it's just a loser's game all round. Doesn't matter. I think I'd always I'd enjoy the book that didn't sell, rather than, just torture myself and have a miserable experience writing books that do.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what it kind of comes down to for me. And the older I get, the longer that I do this, the more books that I have out. I'm aware that I've essentially in many ways staked my life on my writing and my career. Like, I've built my life, my job, the decisions around writing books. That's how much I enjoy writing books. But recently, I've thought, well, what if it comes to the end of my life or the end of my career, and like, what if I never made it? What if, but then we can get into, well, what does that even mean? Made
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But what if they didn't necessarily sell that well? What if I could never make so much money kind of from it that, like, it just never really kind of supported me then. And like, I've chosen to take these jobs that were just facilitating the writing, when I could have, I did a graduate diploma in law. I could have been a lawyer. I could have had a lot of money. So what if I don't make it? And it's like, well, did you have fun? Do
Hmm.
you have, let's say like 20, 30, 40 books that you're proud of? And if the answer's yes, then guess what? Actually, you made it. Actually, you
Hmm.
won. Because as Josh Malerman said, the making it is making it. You made it. You made the art. So what? So what if you come to the end of your life and you want whatever you define
Hmm.
as success? It's all arbitrary. It's all bullshit, everyone. Because
Tagline
if
from the
I
show. Go on.
if I sell one copy of Daddy's Boy, or I sell 10 million copies, it's the same fucking book. So
Hmm.
why are we putting value on our books, on our art, on our passion, based on arbitrary things outside of our control? It doesn't matter how many you sell, it's still the same book, it's still the same story. So write authentically, write what you want to write, and then the rest will work itself out. Because the joy is in the act of writing itself, and you've got to hold on to that. Remember when you were a child, or whenever you first discovered the joy of writing. Hold on to that. When
Mm.
did it become complicated? When did you start caring about sales and Goodreads reviews and Amazon reviews and, oh, am I on the New York Times bestseller list? Am I in this Amazon chart? It doesn't matter. Just return to why you did this in the first place and find that joy. That is what it's all about.
Oh, I love conversations like these. Kind of on that point, I'm going to quote back to you something you said when we had our conversation about House of Bad Memories, which is, I think it's the best book I've ever written, even if it's not the most popular, which feeds back into this conversation about art versus commerce. But I kind of want to ask, where does Daddy's Boy compare, in your estimation, against House of Bad Memories?
You know, as is tradition with any conversation you have with me, I'm going to answer that by answering a slightly different question. So
Scrapping.
earlier I was thinking about all of my books and just kind of what my opinion is of them all, and it's like it's very interesting because the girl in the video is the most commercial. House of Bad Memories is the book that I personally think is just the best book, is the best written. And Daddy's Boy is the most fun that I've ever had writing a book. And then They're Watching is the most horror book that I've
Yeah.
I've ever written. So they all fit these things that, to do with my life and to do with success. Now, I said that House of Bad Memories is the best book that I've ever written, but Daddy's Boy, so in fact, this is exactly your question. Where does Daddy's Boy fit in? How does it compare? And the thing is, I don't even know if we can. So I think, yeah, for me, like Daddy's Boy is my personal favorite. And on a sentence by sentence level, I think Daddy's Boy might be better written than House of Bad Memories. I think it's more
Mm.
immediate. I think we get into the plot right away. I think there is never a dull moment. I think it is a page turner. And I'm not saying that there's a dull moment with House of Bad Memories, but oh my God, is there not a dull moment with
Yeah.
Daddy's Boy? And, House of Bad Memories, it's not a slow burn by traditional standards, but maybe by Michael David Wilson standards. It's a little bit, slower to really get into the meat of what's going on. Not the case with Daddy's Boy. So I think it, yeah, it is technically just as good, if not better, in terms of the sentence by sentence level. Um, it has the same thing that I have inadvertently become known for, where we start off in one genre and there's a change, or there's a kind of what the fuck moment, and there's a twist that people didn't see coming. What it isn't, the House of Bad Memories, it's not quite as dark. It's not
Hmm.
as horror. It's not as crime. It has a lighter touch to it. Um, is even more dialogue heavy. There are
Yeah.
far more jokes. It's interesting because it's less commercial, but in the hands of a comedy studio, it then becomes more commercial. So again, this is I take these turns in my career that are unplanned, because if it was planned, it would be a bloody awful plan. Why have I got really into the horror genre, become known for this as horror, and said, well, here's a book we'll put it out in this as horror, but surprise, this is not horror. This is comedy. This is dark comedy. Oh, so, well, could you get it in with the commercial comedy people? Oh, no, not really, because it got a bit fucked up as well. So I
Because
just
I am a
think
horror writer.
yeah. So that's what I've done. That's me kind of comparing it, but if you got any specific areas you want me to compare, then I can do that. I think they both have that glorious kind of almost larger than life ending to them. I think the ending of House of Bad Memories and Daddy's Boy has more parallels than any other two stories that I've written.
Yeah.
And I do think of them as companion pieces. Like, I kind of think of the girl in the video and they're watching as being kind of one linked flavor or phase of my writing. And then House of Bad Memories and Daddy's Boy is another. And they're almost the same kind of thing, but House of Bad Memories has dialed up the darkness, and Daddy's Boy has dialed up the humor. But if you put the humor down a little bit on Daddy's Boy, it would be that mode that House of Bad Memories is. If you threw the humor of Daddy's Boy into House of Bad Memories, it'd be one fucking confusing story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on a, I guess, more practical level for this story, one question I did have, and coming back, I guess, to when I spoke to James Kennedy about Bride of the Tornado, because have you read that book?
I have not, but you've referenced this twice now, so
yeah, it was one of my favourites from last year. It was very kind of, it had an edge of Clive Barker. It had sort of like the character work of Stephen King, but it was a much more sort of, it was art versus commerce. It was much more on the art side, but it was just one of the things that I found similarity between that and your book is there's this real compression of just a lot of ideas and a lot of things going on. And writing a book, you're often told to strip out anything that's not necessarily like keep it simple for the reader, but you know, you you don't do that. It's wild in like the best way. And so on a writer's level, how do you manage all of these strings? How did you approach that book with all of these different ideas and with so many sort of, you know, arrows in your quiver?
Another good and multifaceted question. And I mean, where to even begin? In terms of why I do it, again, not the question that he asked. Yeah, we've been through this. Like, I said, I want to write something that hasn't been done before. If someone else is doing it, then I'm not interested. So I tend to find, I mean, a good kind of starting point was when Stephen Graham Jones was talking about his approach to submitting to anthologies, and particularly Ellen Datlow themed anthologies. And almost before he writes anything, he will write a list of the things that he doesn't want to include, and then everything that remains, you know, that's the story. That's kind of your starting point. And so, I mean, for me, like, I do crave originality and putting stuff together in a way that hasn't happened before. So, like, there needs to be more texture, there needs to be more going on. So, you know, that's why, as well as there being this relationship between Norman and Wentworth and them connecting or reconnecting, you can read the story to find out which. There's also in the local area a possible serial killer, and there's some domestic trouble, let's say, in the house next door. And you've also got like this weird kind of group of Kidderminster criminals that are hot on their tail. And I think it's to make it exciting. And in terms of how I keep track of it, I mean, I plan out every story before I write it. But I've also, you know, said to you before that I'll also give myself permission to go off track a little bit if that is kind of what a character demands or what feels right in the moment. But anytime I do that, then I'll look at, right, how can I seed in and how can I foreshadow this? How can I reference this and make it completely consistent with the story? So, I mean, at the moment, I'm working on, as I said before, a book with John Crinan.
Yeah.
And
I'm
sometimes
so
you'll
ready
come,
for this book. Like, I've heard so much about it.
yeah, and this is a book that has been on the cards for a number of years, but then, I'll take a little break and I'll write Daddy's Boy, or something in life will happen. But actually, you know, we are in it now, and I've set a kind of tentative deadline for us to have this first draft finished by September.
Hell yes.
Um, I was originally working on this with John Crinan and working on a solo novel. Mainly, I was working on the solo novel too because I'm looking at, like, can I take my publishing to the next level, or can I get an agent? Can I get a bigger publisher? It's easier to sell a solo book than it is for you to sell a collaboration if you're looking for a kind of permanent publisher or
Hmm.
agent, unless, like, me and Crinan is a thing like Benson and Moorhead, if that's the main event. But if this is a side project, it's harder. But then, I don't know, I had a talk to myself, which you can tell I'd be good at doing, as I've asked some questions to myself during this conversation.
It's like the
And
easiest guest to interview.
and I just thought, do do you love this book that you're writing with John Crinan? Yes. Do you believe in it? Do you want to see it on the shelf? Do you just feel that this needs to exist in your soul, in your fucking being? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. Then just finish that one. Don't worry about, writing another one as well. And if the agent or the publisher comes to you and they want to know what are you working on, it's this.
Yeah.
That this is the book. This is the thing that I believe in, so this is what I want to show you. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I also just found it's so difficult because the way I was doing this, but it was not easy. It was like, John Crinan book next day, my solo next book, John
Yeah.
Crinan, like just alternating, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a difficult headspace to occupy.
I've got
Um,
4 books I'm juggling at the minute with different writers, and
I,
it is a nightmare.
I just it just made it less enjoyable. Um, I think if, you said with different writers, if it was for collaborations, if it was multiple collaborations, marginally easier.
Mm.
But I don't know. I don't really want to work on more than one book again. The caveat is, like, of course, like, I can do edits, I can do redrafts, but I mean, just like, I don't want to first draft
Yeah.
2 things at the same
Oh
time.
no, first drafting. Yeah, it's a juggle.
What did you even ask me? You asked
It
me a
was how you fit
question.
so many wild ideas into a book.
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, it purely, I plan these different things, and then, yeah, I meticulously go through so that it all appears organic. Like, I like foreshadowing, I like
Hmm.
consistency. I
Yeah.
don't want something to just appear to be random, or like I just threw it in. And so at any book, I did not just throw things in. I very systematically thought about it. You, as a reader, can judge how successful
Mm.
you think I was, but these all these decisions are deliberate.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous in a way, a book of dick jokes and sausages, and it's so meticulous, but it is
Yeah.
the
It's fun.
truth. Yeah.
So we are getting close to time, but and I think you've kind of already answered a bit of this question, but what is next for Michael David Wilson?
Well, I think probably what is next is I don't know how much do I say, how much don't I say. Um, there's no contracts at the moment, so I can say what I want. Oh, I'm gonna be a wild man. So
Or
I've
get
got
exclusive.
I've got this novella that's called What Would Wesley Do? And it is just a novella in the sense that it is something like 39,000 various hundred words. 40,000 becomes a novel.
Yeah.
I've got that at the moment with a publisher. A very good publisher is looking at it, and I've also got an agent looking at it right now. I think that I talk about pairing and matching things. I think this is the closest in terms of genre and commercial viability to the girl in the video that I've ever put out. Um, but I think it has some of the warmth and the humor that people who've read House of Bad Memories and Daddy's Boy have experienced. It doesn't dial it up quite, because I said it's commercial. If it dialed it up to Daddy's Boy level, it may not be. But I think that this may even be the kind of perfect melding of commercial versus authentic.
Nice.
So, yeah, what would Wesley do? It's with a couple of important people at the moment, and we will see what happens. I should have some conversations within the next month to see what interest or what lack of interest there is, and then decide what to do with that one. But yeah, with it being so close to a novel, I mean, at the time I did think, is there a way that I can expand this to make it a novel? And
Yeah.
that's kind of putting the commercial hat on, because then it's an easier sell for
Yeah.
everyone. But I just couldn't quite see it. But maybe said publisher or said agent, maybe they can see it, because goodness, to have something so commercial within grasp, it feels like, just how do I bump it up to a novel
Yeah.
without compromising any values or story? Because for me, story comes first, and a story should only be as long as it absolutely needs to be.
Yeah.
Not a fan of filler, not a fan of just boosting the word count. So it would have to be for the right reasons. But it's likely that that could be the next book that comes out. I would hope that it would come out next year, or if it doesn't come out next year, it's because I've got a deal with a big publisher with kind of big,
Yeah.
with long schedules, and it's on its way. If that one doesn't come out next, then it could be the book with John Crinan. And I already mentioned that there's another work in progress, and then there's the psychosexual thriller. So that there's
All the things going on.
four books in progress. There's a short story collection pretty much ready to go, and there are always new ideas coming in. And so this is why right now I can't do the one for the studio and one for me.
Yeah.
All for me.
All for me, you
Too
greedy
many.
bastard.
Yeah, but slowly but surely, I'm getting a kind of cult following for people who enjoy this kind of stuff. And that's another reason why it's like, no, don't abandon your values, don't sell out. Stick to the path, because there are people who are really enjoying it, and that's who it's for.
You always manage to find a way to slip in a nice little quote or phrase towards the end that just resonates. Good job. But unfortunately, I didn't prepare you for this, but we do have one more little thing before you go, which is I'm bringing back the quickfire round into this podcast. So you've done this before. You know how it goes. I've made the questions deliberately less thinky, because I think last time a few of the ones needed clarification and stuff. So hopefully,
I am a master at overthinking and taking the stupidest questions very seriously. So I think last time you said they're quick questions, but the answers need to be quick too. I think maybe last time you said, "Oh, they don't need to be," but maybe now you're
we'll
like,
see.
"Oh, you've got the sense of my answer, so you might want to say quick," and you get 5 minutes, not 50.
Yeah. No, yeah. Quick answers if we can. I think. Well, we'll see how this goes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, number one, are you a morning writer or a night owl?
I am a morning writer.
If Daddy's Boy was a drink, what drink would it be?
Oh, that is an amazing question. What would it be? It would be some bizarre. God, it would be some bizarre cocktail. It would have to have vodka in, and it would have a collection of, like, in the cocktails you have like an umbrella. It would just have cocktail sausages fucking pouring out of it, like it probably tastes fucking disgusting,
just a bit
but
of meat
you'd
juice
also
in there.
get addicted to it. It's I don't know why, but I can't shift the idea that Dr. Pepper is kind of the mix there. It's like got vodka and Dr. Pepper, and it's got a little bit of Bullet bourbon just to give it something good. And then there's just fucking sausage. Oh shit! There's fucking sausages all over the place.
That was Michael shaking his cocktail.
Yeah, for the audio, that was me hitting this big sausage of a mic that's in front of me.
All right, question 3. Do you write with music?
Sometimes I do, but I don't need to, and I can write without. I'll usually write with music if there's too much noise going on in the background to get rid of the background sounds, but I don't need music.
Which author would you haunt if you were a ghost?
Oh, that's a nasty thing to do. Why would I be doing that? Why would I start haunting an author? Maybe because I followed my passion instead of, commercial values, and so I was jealous. And I wanted to target somebody really, really famous who would have no option but to tell the world about me and my books.
Genius.
Stephen King,
There
I am haunting you.
Now, flipping it, which author would you want to haunt you if you were a ghost?
Hang on. They're haunting me, but I'm a ghost.
Wait, no, I wrote that question wrong, but we'll roll with it. You're a ghost. Who's haunting you as a ghost?
No, let's not roll
You're
with
haunting
it.
Stephen King. Who's haunting you while you haunt Stephen King?
Right. Well, actually, I'm so impressed with my first answer that I think, because I want to find, how am I going to be commercial and sell books without compromising my values? So I gotta have someone really big haunt me, not physically, just in terms of sales. Well, because I'm not even 100% sure what I'm about to say, so I'm glad that like two authors have popped into my head, but I'm just gonna get haunted by William Shakespeare.
Oh, nice. Fair.
But Kurt Vonnegut and Edgar Allan Poe turned up too. Like, hopefully they all bloody turn up.
Is there one thing that you absolutely refuse to eat?
I can't eat anything with gluten. I've got a gluten allergy, Dan. So I'm gonna be in.
Thanks for airing that on the podcast.
I'm gonna be in a lot of pain. Have we mentioned that before? Like, I turned my life around with my diet.
We might have in our first conversation. We went into foods
like
and
if
stuff.
if I hadn't changed my diet, then I would be in a wheelchair right now in a lot of pain.
Literally,
Yeah, literally. Why would I say that figuratively? Why would that be
We exaggerate for
figuratively?
comedic effect.
No, I
Yeah.
would. But that's a story for another day. Or if people are having problems with arthritis and or joint health or
Mm.
autoimmune conditions, and they think I can help, then do reach out to me, because I turned my own life around through diet and lifestyle choices. This has got very helpful for a quick fire round, but
It's
please,
so
let's go
quick.
back to sausages or whatever.
What's one book that you wish you'd written?
Carrie by Stephen King.
Nice. Is it 25, 50 years? 25 years? I've got the, not this is anything to quick fire round, I literally got the limited special edition 50th anniversary copy of it. It's gorgeous. So nice.
Who published that?
I don't know. I will have a look
Okay.
post-record, because it's over there somewhere. I'm not leaving this just yet. Who's your celebrity doppelganger?
My celebrity doppelganger. Are we talking about physically in terms of looks?
I'd say so.
That's what it. God. I mean, there's so many.
Pause while
people,
Michael looks at himself in the
there's
camera.
so many people with this bold bearded look. Oh, I don't know. I wish it was Jason Statham, but it clearly isn't. God, like if you were really drunk, you could look a bit like Andrew Tate, and we don't want that
Oh,
either
no.
for different
Oh, no.
reasons, do we? So goodness, like I mean, what happens if you strive for Jason Statham, but you only
You can say
reach Andrew Tate, who's in the middle? What's that, like Nicolas Cage on a bad day? I don't know. What is it? I don't know.
Well, we can leave that one. Do you believe in?
You can keep that in. Keep the workings. Like in GCSE maths, you got.
I only
got
ask because the amount of people that compare me to James McAvoy or Mark Zuckerberg, and I think they're quite wild flavors to try and mix together into an ice cream. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you'd try it. I mean, if that was the ice cream available. Like, yeah.
Question 9. Do you believe in fate?
What does that even mean then? How are you going to define fate? There we go. We've fallen into the trap of I can't answer.
Circumstantial intention that is aimed at benefiting you without your prior knowledge.
Look, I believe in hard work. I believe in kindness. I believe in just like trying your best and discipline and doing the things that bring you joy. I believe that if we do good actions, and it seems to be my experience that eventually good will come to us. And I think even when times are really testing and you're down and you're feeling angry with the world, you gotta not let that external darkness become internal darkness. And I think whether or not fate is real, it's if we act like karma is real and we do unto others as we wish people would do unto us, I don't know why my language has got so biblical, then I believe that good things will happen. You'll be amazed at how good life can be. And I think sometimes like we think, oh, it'll never happen for us, and we can get so consumed by our perceived failures that we're not looking ahead at the opportunities that are literally right in front of us. So whether or not fate is or isn't true, just be a good person and be a kind person in spite of whatever darkness the life throws at you.
Beautiful. And last question of our quick fire round.
I hope this is really fun.
Yeah. What one book would you recommend above all others, excluding your own?
If it was non-fiction, then to go back to my health, I would recommend The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, because that was the book that changed my life. That was the one where I could turn things around. If we're talking about just a bloody good book, and this is more kind of, I guess, lighter, then I would say Kill Your Friends by John Niven.
Nice. Not read that one. Add that to the TBR. Bonus question. Where can my listeners find out about yourself and everything that you are working on?
Well, I mean, there's the website, michaeldavidwilson.co.uk. I think the best social media to catch me on at the moment is Blue Sky. So I'm This Is Horror on Blue Sky. But honestly, if you really want to kind of find out about me and connect with me, then your best place is either to become a patron at patreon.com/Michael David Wilson, or to listen to This Is Horror podcast. And if you like the podcast, then you can become a patron at patreon.com/This Is Horror. So you've got 2 Patreons, or just listen to the podcast. That's how you're gonna
highly recommend. Yes,
kind of get. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll make sure to pop all those links in the show notes for people. And that is a wrap. So thank you so much, Michael, for joining us this week on the Writer's Chair podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries. And an especially big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in. But before you dash off, if you're craving deeper conversation, writing advice, or just fancy hanging out with fellow readers and storytellers, come and join me in the Devil's Rock community on Discord. I'm on a mission to build the largest online space for fans of horror and dark fiction, a home where writers and readers connect, create, and thrive together. It's free, open to all, and always crackling with inspiration. So if you're ready to pull up a virtual chair, head on over to devilsrockbooks.com/podcast for the invite link. And until next time, my friends, write bravely and dream dark.